What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm down at Street Side Classics and we're going to do a comparison between the latest generation for the Dodge Challenger Hellcat against this 1971 Dodge Challenger RT. So huge shout out to them for providing both of these vehicles for me today. Make sure you guys check out their website because they have a lot of awesome pre-owned inventory to choose from. If you'd also like to see a detailed review on the 71, I'll have that down in the description below, as well as a full review on a Hellcat. And so real quick, I'm not really comparing trim to trim. So I'm not comparing an RT to a Hellcat since they didn't have a Hellcat 471. We're just taking a look at the generational differences between 71 and the latest generation. So let's start up front on the 71. Where you'll see for the 71-year model, they actually did a little bit different changes compared to the previous generation for the Challenger. They made the grille much slimmer looking. You can see the large cutouts right in the middle, how narrow they are and sleek they are. We have the headlights that are very close together. So you can see that we have the chrome surrounding the entire upper section there, and it just gives it a really clean and low profile. Fast forward all the way to this 2019, where you can see the grille is pretty much in the same design. You can see the headlights are just as close, where you'll see the grille has a little bit different of a design with all of the mesh, and then there's even an air inlet over on this driver's side right in the middle there to provide better aerodynamics. Over on the 71, this was actually the aerodynamic model, so they had a little bit more changes for 71 with all of the inlets that you see. So it pretty much carries over to the latest generation. You can see we have a much larger lower grille though compared to the 71, and we even have that lower splitter. You can see on the 71 it just wasn't as big, kind of right in the middle there, and as we've progressed you can almost stand on that. It is that thick. So it's pretty interesting to see how similar they are up front. Now on the new Hellcat here, we have functional hood scoops up top and air inlets. On the 71 here, they are actually not functional. They still have a cool look though. They are just not as functional. But you can see we do have some similarities in the hoods as well. So with the front ends out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the power plant for the 71. So in order to open up this hood, we actually had these hood latches here. You have one on each side. All you need to do is pop those out, and then up underneath the grille, you could pull the release. Since this doesn't have a modern hood release inside the vehicle, that is how you did it to open this up. Over on the Hellcat, you pull the release and then you could go ahead and open that up. And with both of the hoods open, let's start off on the 71. So back in 71, these engines were referred to in cubic inches rather than in liters. So this engine here was the second highest high performance engine option that you could spec. This is a 440 cubic inch V8, and if you translate 440 to liters, this is around a 7.2 liter V8. It pumped out 385 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque. So by today's standards, that is very low, but it was very cool to see that you had multiple engine options back in 71, just depending on how you wanted to spec your Challenger. And so now if we work our way over to the Hellcat, this is a 6.2 liter supercharged V8. So it's a little bit smaller than the 7.2 in the 71, but this pumps out 707 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque. So there's definitely a significant difference over the years with what they've been able to do with a smaller engine and pretty much twice the horsepower. And both of these cars are still rear-wheel drive. Both of these are manuals. We have a 6-speed manual and a 5-speed manual. I think a 4-speed manual was optional as well on the smaller engine options, but you can see a difference with how much this engine fills up the engine bay. Over here, we have a little bit more space, but look at all the chrome on the engine too. You can even see it up top there. And a few more specs that I wanted to go over. Both of these actually have a very similar wheelbase. However, this Hellcat is around 7 or 8 inches longer. To me, it looks like the 71 is longer, but I think that with the extra space that you have in the back seats for the Hellcat is where that added length comes into play. Now we have a curb weight of around 3,000 pounds, closer to 4,400 for the Hellcat, top speed of almost 200 miles an hour, top speed of around 150, and they both have around an 18-gallon fuel tank, which is interesting to see. But as we look at this 71, you'll see a very distinctive line for the Challenger, runs just above the fender arches, underneath the door handle, curves up, and goes all the way back to the taillights. You'll see that same line over on the newer Hellcat here. It goes just above the fenders, underneath the door handle, and up to the taillights. So it pretty much has the exact same shape. Even the roofline is very, very similar. You can see that back window there pretty much mimics the one on the Challenger. And what's also interesting to point out is the back windows on the 71 actually roll down. So all 4 of those windows can go down. They are fixed on the newer model here. and you'll see that the rear glass is also pretty much the same. Now, I have seen some newer Challengers where people will mimic the back area of the back window on the 71, which is kind of interesting to see. And then last up, we'll talk about the rear. So over on the Hellcat, you can see we have the trunk mounted spoiler with the new badging that you'll see on the back side. We have the taillights in that kind of oval shape with Dodge right in the middle, and then we have the dual exhaust down below. Now, if we work our way to the 71, you'll see that the spoiler is a little bit different, being mounted farther on the trunk, but we have a very similar design for the newer model that's carried over. You'll see Challenger right in the middle instead of Dodge, of course. We have the quad tip exhaust along with a lot of chrome that you won't see on the newer model, but it's definitely a very, very similar design for the exterior. So of course on the 71, we didn't have a smart key, so you had to use the key to lock and unlock it. But you'll see on the door panel, it is pretty simple. We have lock and unlock. You can just push on that and pull on that. That is how you locked and unlocked the door. We had the roll-up windows and then the side mirror adjustment. And very vintage here is the wooden steering wheel. Very, very large. Definitely gives it a cool look though. And then as far as all of the other technology, you really have your headlights, your panel dimmer, wiper blades, pretty much all of your vitals right on the gauge cluster there. This does have AC radios over on the right side. We have that 5-speed manual with the pistol grip there, which is interesting to note. But that was about it for the interior. We do have the back seats, just like on the newer one. You just push on this button here and push the backrest forwards, and that gave you access to the back. So you definitely had a lot of space, but aside from that, this was just a driver's car. You just hopped in this car and took it for a cruise. One thing I also want to note, we have the emergency brake as a foot pedal down below with the release just above that. And the main reason I wanted to point that out is because you'll see that on the newest generation for the Challenger. So we do have this button here that you could use to lock and unlock it. And obviously the door panel is a lot more refined. We have a few different materials. We have the window controls instead of roll up with your side mirror adjustments and even a speaker too. But down below, you can see 4 pedals. So we have the gas, brake, clutch, and then the e-brake. A lot of people always comment on our newest videos on the Hellcats why they have the foot brake down there. Well, it's carried over from the 71. So they haven't changed that. But you'll see with a 2019 model, we have a lot more amenities, a lot more creature comforts to daily drive this a little bit more. With all of your headlight adjustments, you can see the gauge cluster there. That's actually digital. So you have a lot of information to go through using those buttons there. We have the center navigation screen, 6-speed manual, of course, and a little bit different of a seat. You can see the bolsters that they have to them. And then we have the same design for the seat there to look into the back, where you have even more amenities with the armrest. So definitely a lot of changes for the interior over the years. The exterior has more of a similar design. The interior is pretty much completely different. But now let's work our way to the trunks for both of these. On the newer generation, you could push this button here, unlock it, and now you can see I have some of my stuff in here. Well, we have a pretty large trunk. You could definitely fit a lot of items in here, even with 4 or 5 people in this car. And then onto the 71 now, there was only one way to gain access to the trunk. That was putting this key in. It only went in one way as well. And turning that to the right, you could pop this open, where you'll see we still have a lot of space, even the full-size spare. The trunk is not as insulated as on the newer model. You can see a lot more exposed areas, which is kind of neat to see. You can see some piping over on this side, but you still got a good amount of space. And then to close it, we just locked it and pull this key out just like that. And so with all of that out of the way, it's time to take these for a quick spin to see the 71 compared to the latest generation for the Challenger. Now, with the 71 again, we have the turn key. So we just have to pull on this latch. With this large steering wheel, it makes it a little bit tricky to enter. So I have to kind of slide my thighs up underneath the steering wheel there. And I'm 5'10". The seat is adjustable, so you can move that forwards and backwards. I do need to go ahead and take this lap belt and latch that. Now with the clutch on this vehicle, this is much more tricky to drive. It gives you a lot more driver feedback than on the latest generation, as you'll see. So I have to push this clutch and really give it some muscle to fire this up. We're gonna roll this window up so that way you can better hear me while we're driving this. We have that pistol grip, which is a really neat design. You don't see that on pretty much any modern vehicle unless you went ahead and changed out the shift knob. Now, like I said, this is, it would help if I took the e-brake off. There we go. But that clutch there is definitely very, very tight. Now I got to give it some gas here so I don't stall it. And this took a lot more effort to drive. It's always crazy, for me at least, to hop into vehicles of this era because I'm not in them every day. And you really needed to muscle this car. Now you can see I'm turning the wheel. The vehicle is not really turning, so the steering input is not as direct as it is in modern cars. But I mean, you could turn it quicker and get your turn in. Now we're not doing anything crazy today, just in this parking lot here. But you can at least get a feel for maybe how much louder it is than in the newest generation there. We won't really test handling, but we can give it a little bit more gas. And with the power brakes, we can slow down. It's definitely fun to drive. Definitely fun to drive when you compare it to the latest generation, especially driving them back to back. You just don't get to do that every day. So at least you can see what it's like from the POV angle here of this entire interior. You know, visibility is really good too. Pretty much have a similar visibility as in the Hellcat. So let's do one last quick lap here. Turn in the other way, give it a little bit of gas. Woo! Now I'm only getting up to around third or fourth gear, but the shifter is actually pretty smooth. It's mainly just the clutch that is very, very difficult. I'm gonna hop into the Hellcat and just push it straight to the floor because this is a workout for your left leg for sure. But yeah, this is the 71 Challenger. We'll park it right back next to this. Definitely a bit of a process when you compare it to modern day. So everything has become a little bit easier. So we'll leave it in first, shut it off, let it shut off, get the e-brake there. You had to push on this thing here to release the key, line it up and do that. And then we got our lap belt. The door handle surprisingly is very, very similar. As you'll see, you have to pull it backwards just like in the Hellcat. So definitely a very fun experience. And as we work our way to the Hellcat, we have the smart key, so I don't even have to grab it. We can just hop right in. We have the seatbelt over the shoulder, which pretty much every single modern car has. Push the clutch in, and with the push button, we can start it right up. We have the automatic windows, so you don't have to roll them. But yeah, the clutch pedal is very, very light when you compare it to the 71. Put it into first gear there. We have to release the e-brake. Wow, I did the same thing in both of them. But this is right off the bat much, much easier to drive. Obviously, because you can drive this, you have better access to this model than you do the older generations. And with over 700 horsepower, the refinement is definitely there. Obviously, we're talking about a very, very big generation gap between the two. But steering input, as soon as I turn it, you can see the whole vehicle shake there, whereas we had a little bit more of a delay in that car. You can rev match this one a lot easier because the pedals are closer. And so we'll give it a little bit of gas here in second. Much quicker in the shifts. Like I said, clutch pedal is super light. Shifter feels much better, of course. The shifter in the 71 was easy to go through. This one's just a little bit more refined. And we'll do the same visibility test. You can see the entire dash here, much different. Visibility, I would say, is maybe a little bit worse over this side here, just because that pillar there is a little bit more bulky. But it's very cool to drive these back to back, something I've never done before.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the power in the Hellcat is ready to roar and come to life. Now, I have been able to drive this a lot more. I'll have that video down in the description if you'd like to see this, you know, getting out of second and third gear here. But for this test today, this is definitely interesting to see the refinement. It is much, much, much quieter on the interior of this Hellcat versus the Challenger over there. And what we don't have in the Challenger over there is the backup camera, which is very helpful in certain situations. We can shut that off, do the e-brake, and you'll see door handle is identical. We just have a lot more going on this door panel. So that's going to wrap it up for the comparison between a 1971 Dodge Challenger and the latest generation for the Challenger. Hope you guys enjoyed today's comparison. And once again, huge shout out to Street Side Classics for providing both of these muscle cars for me today. Check out their website. They have a huge building here full of awesome pre-owned inventory. If you like today's video, give it a huge thumbs up and consider smashing that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our daily uploads. We'll see you guys in the next video.